We are back now with a very special guest. He's the co-host on Talkin Giants, Bleeding Blue, contributor to Talkin Football, and is a Giant Take Hall of Famer. Justin Penik, how are you doing today?
Hi, the Giant Take, Josh, Alex, some of my favorite people in the entire world. Thank you for having me on. It's been a while since we've chatted, and I hate that.
Seriously.
I hate that it's been so long. I hate it. But I'm glad that we're here. And we're gonna do what we do, and we're gonna talk some Giants.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a while. I want to say it was episode 100 or 150. I don't know how many episodes we're at. 100.
We celebrated a milestone together.
Maybe.
Yeah, that was a celebration.
So 100. So we're at what, like 170 something at this point? I don't know even at this point.
But
yeah,
I just want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we're on 172.
Yeah.
This episode will be 172, but I just want to point out that Alex, whatever you missed us.
Yes,
we did do a video during the season.
Yes,
Justin, we did, which was really fun. Actually, it was the quarterback situation around the New York Giants.
Yes, that was an impromptu thing. Yeah.
Oh, because I was like sick or something. I don't remember. Probably one of my various ailments, but yeah. I mean, you've been up to a lot of things since then. I mean, you've been talking to players. Andrew Thomas was in your van. It looked like you were about to kidnap him. I'm not sure what was going on there.
We did.
What happened there? Were you in like a parking lot? Did you see him like walking out? You're like, "Hey,
MetLife
Andrew!"
Stadium parking lot.
No, it was So it was the parking lot of MetLife Stadium, and it was
MetLife
basically
Stadium,
just they got out of OTAs. It was like the first day of like everybody getting together for OTAs. So then Bobby, was messaging him on Instagram. He follows our Instagram page, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to be interviewed this offseason?" Yeah, and then Bobby was coming up for a charity event that we didn't wind up covering because of the rain that day, and that's when we did the Andrew Thomas interview. So it was rain. Oh my God! So we had all these different setups of the camera because it was raining outside, and we couldn't put the camera outside. Is the guy that we have with us from John Boy Media, is he going to stand out there with the umbrella and hold over the camera, or no, are we going to put some blankets on the bottom of the camera so it can stand on a piece of furniture? And it was nuts, but the sun wound up coming up. Andrew Thomas came out in his black in his black Dodge F-150. I need to stop saying Ford F-150. Black Dodge Ram 1500, all supercharged, all blacked out. It was really, really sick. And we kidnapped him for about a half an hour, and we chatted with him.
That's
and
nice.
Since the last time we talked, you also have gone to some other places. I know this was a while ago now. Before the draft, you went to the Senior Bowl, which, by the way, like one of the most amazing few days of watching your guys' content I think I've ever like the most enjoyment I've ever had. Laughing, loving, Talkin Giants, the couch live streams,
oh my gosh,
the Bleeding Blue episode. That had to be the funniest Bleeding Blue episode I've ever listened to in my entire life.
Yeah, and that was
prank call.
We did like a Simple Man Radio thing too, and so the Senior Bowl coverage.
Simple Man Radio. That's what I meant. Yeah, Simple Man.
The Senior Bowl coverage is actually something that I really want to revamp next year, and I want to make a lot better. Like the Simple Man Radio on the couch thing was absolutely fantastic, but the Senior Bowl coverage itself, there's not a lot of people that do it. There's a lot of people that go, and there's a lot of people that talk about what's going on, but I find that there's just so much that you can do that week. So I'm really excited to really like reflecting on this is my first year full-time for the draft. And this is Bobby's and I's first year that we're full-time together with the draft, where he does a lot of like the breakdowns and stuff, and then I help put that out, and I kind of like edit, produce everything. So I'm excited to actually get to next year's draft to see how much more we can do on both the Giants channel and the football channel. So I'm really pumped for that. But the Senior Bowl was a lot of fun. There's a lot of times where it's like, yeah, the draft is work. That's a lot of work. The Senior Bowl was that week where it's like, this is just really fun. Being in Alabama, we were down with the football grump. We were down with Snacks, Bobby. So we all got to hang out. We all went to an Alabama like local bar afterwards, and after we were all done, and that was really, really fun. So
yeah, I mean, you're mentioning it. A lot of people go to the Senior Bowl, but then you look online, and at least for us, we're watching at home or whatever, And it's like, you can watch the NFL Network.
But what's going on?
Show they
you don't really know.
But you have no idea. You see all these people like this guy had a really great. How do we know? We didn't see anything.
Yeah.
So you guys, there was a couple other people who I definitely relied on as well. It was nice to get more content from the Senior Bowl, having more videos of clips, of things happening rather than just kind of hearing it, afterwards. Because you want to see things with your own eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely,
that's always a thing you want to see. Just like at the Combine, that's why you're there to watch the Combine, all million hours of it. It feels like, but you want to see everything. You don't want to miss anything. So
yeah.
I appreciated your guys' content.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, you can get the reports on players during drills, and you can get videos of Snacks doing karaoke. I mean, it's really, what do you want more out of Senior Bowl?
True.
I
know what I want.
And also,
I was surprised Snacks didn't get kicked out of the Senior Bowl. How did that happen? He was able to keep his cool.
Oh, well, yeah, he was able to keep his cool. He had an in with the people of Alabama. Right away, he showed up at that bar, showed up at the stadium, just started making friends. But Snacks is a genius because he'll make friends with the people that he needs to make friends with, and then he can act like a fool. That's his approach, and it's a beautiful approach.
Yeah.
But there was the one little beef with the person at the bar, right? The prank call that you guys did after.
Oh boy, yeah. There was a there was a guy that wore rings on his fingers, and Snacks was talking to a lady, and I think this guy didn't like that. Snacks. Well, no, Snacks wasn't even like outwardly flirting with this woman, but women just go up to Snacks because I mean everybody, men, women, dinosaurs, everybody just goes up to Snacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one guy wasn't liking it. So then we prank called him.
A good response.
Snacks somehow got his phone number, even though he wanted to fight Snacks, because that's just who Snacks is.
Yeah.
And then we prank called him. Yes.
Yeah.
It works out. And then Charlotte Motor Speedway recently race. Super, super exciting stuff. Super fun stuff watching that. What did you think? Overall rating of the experience.
Well, of the live show or of the NASCAR race on the weekend? Because the live show was a mess.
Separate events. Yeah, I was gonna say separate events.
Yeah, the live show with Mr. Brown, like Mr. Brownstone, Tim Coffey, Research Rick, Tucker Cherry, and then Steven Toronto from CBS Sports was also on too. So it was a lot of fun. Mr. Brownstone, we're going to be playing that drop. I want to win games. I just want to win. I bet he don't want to win. Like just his deep Southern accent with saying that he wants to win while he was on Natty Daddies. It was a lot of fun.
And also, since the last time we've had you on, the new John Boy Media offices opened, right? So that was in the city. Yeah, that also happened. So. That I've seen you guys were there for the draft, I want to say, right? Or unless you were in some other secret location.
No, we streamed all 17 hours of the NFL draft. No, I slept in New York, so they got me a hotel in New York. But I was close to sleeping in the office because we would put out the streams, and then we would do the prep that we needed to do, and then we would record the episodes and whatever. So. It was a long weekend. It was a long week. I mean, and the draft weekend is always the longest weekend. It's the most important weekend, really out of the entire year. But 17 hours of the draft, and we did it all from the John Boy Media HQ. So that was a cool setup. The live stream setup that they had, and that we were all able to be together in person. 4 or 5 of us were on camera at one time, and able to interact with the chat all at the same time too, and not sacrificing that. That was a cool weekend.
I want to tell a little bit of a funny story here. So obviously your guys' office, I assume John Boy Media office, is an undisclosed location, right? So no one knows where it is.
It's in Manhattan,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but you don't hand out the address so people aren't out there shouting.
I'll give you the address.
No, you don't need to do that. John,
I have no idea where you're going for this, Alex. So I'm trapped.
So Josh, as you know, is a huge John Boy fan.
Sure.
And so one of our friends, we're not going to disclose where this was, but he saw John Boy because John Boy takes the train to work.
Oh, okay.
John Boy takes the train.
Okay. Yeah.
And so he saw John Boy, and now Josh is looking, how can he ambush John Boy at the train station? So do you have any tips for us?
Do I have any tips on how to ambush John Boy?
Yeah.
I mean, I've
Josh is blushing right now. I'm just going.
Okay.
I'm just talking.
You two
random
are very
stuff.
tall.
Yeah, somewhat.
Yes.
That's not good.
Not
because
compared
Jim,
to Bobby though.
Because Jim is short.
He's short.
Jim is a very short man. So if you ambush him and you're a big man,
He's gonna run.
Well, he may run. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, what's an instinct of somebody kind of walking towards you that is bigger than
That's
you?
true.
You probably turn around. So act shorter than you are.
Does that happen to Bobby when people come up to him? Do they
I'm
see him
sure.
and then start
I'm sure
running?
that's just an issue that Bobby has in his life. It's just, oh man, there is a big person approaching me. What is he going to be doing to me? So I'm sure that is just a problem that he has just in general. Him in my car is a funny sight. And I ask him, because I have a Honda Cross Tour, which is an SUV. And I ask him, like, you're right. You're right. Like, you need to, like, do anything? He's like, no, this is one of the more spacious cars that I've been in. And he's, like, crunched up. I'm like, oh, okay. Cool.
How is he on an airplane? Let's hope they give him extra legroom seats.
He pays $70 to get the upgrade to the emergency exit row because that has slightly more room. And he says it's worth it every single time. All right, but I'll give you, so the advice to ambush John Boy is to act shorter than you actually are. Okay. And then just scream Talkin Giants versus the world at him.
I'm just trying to make sure,
Just scream that at him.
Just trying to figure it out. Okay, I'll scream it. Well, Josh will scream it. Anyway.
Alex, you caught me from left field. I had no idea that was coming. I was so confused.
I wanted to talk about it. I don't know. Thought it'd be funny.
But yes, no. Interesting.
Josh,
I was going to do the... I was gonna do the. I already had my John Boy moment at the Yankee game. We're okay.
Yeah, he was very. Happy.
I was very happy. You could tell from the pictures. Transitioning now from we were talking about at the draft. You guys at John Boy Media HQ. I mean, I know we're in June. It's like past draft time, but again, we haven't spoken in a while. So Thibodeau, Neal, we got our guys at 5 and 7. Got some other guys in this draft as well. We got a wide receiver again. And, still interesting to me. But just, I guess, your overall thoughts on the draft and these top guys we're going to see now on the field coming August, September, and beyond.
Yeah, my thoughts on the draft is that it is really centered around getting young guys in here, where I feel like we did a lot of our prep and we did our mock drafts and, hey, you look at the ages of the guys that I think we were drafting. It's 22, 23, maybe sometimes even 24. Because of the whole opt-out year with COVID, the next couple of years are still going to have an impact with that, where the extra year of eligibility that guys gain. So more of the well-known guys are some of the older guys, the guys that have more stats, the guys that have more games logged in under their belts, especially when you're looking at after the first round, right? If you're good, you're good. And if you're a top 10 pick, you're a top 10 pick. I don't think it necessarily matters what, how old you are, but, so it was a young class, very versatile, where they can do multiple different things. And then also I have a hard time looking at this draft class and not thinking that Joe Schoen really did just trust his evaluations of players in his top 30 visits, because besides DJ Davidson, there was no player that was taken from like a small school, right? Like, hey, like this. Oh, look at this local small school. Like Will Hernandez came from a small school. O'Shane Zimenez came from a small school. All those guys came from like small schools that you never heard of. That didn't happen in this draft class. Every single one of these guys was taken from somewhat of a big school besides DJ Davidson.
Maybe Daniel Bellinger, right? San Diego State's not huge.
It's still like that Division I school that's in like a major conference. So
true.
Yeah.
And they desperately needed a tight end too. So if there's one position that Joe Schoen is really going to do his own research into, it's tight end. And Daniel Bellinger was also a Senior Bowl guy too, so he was there. Mm-hmm. So if they had an opportunity to meet him, they met him there. So that was a thought that we had after the draft. Just like, did Joe Schoen only trust his evaluations and guys that he kind of got his chance to get his hands on in terms of meetings and in terms of attending pro days and whatnot? Because he did also attend, and him and Bobby Johnson attended the University of North Carolina pro day, which that's where we drafted those two offensive linemen, right? So it was hard not to think that as soon as the draft was over, and then lo and behold, 24 hours after the draft was over, they fired Chris Pettit. So it's like, oh, that was true. You don't like to get conspiracy theories sometimes, but that was ultimately true. I do like this draft class. It was just very unconventional from, besides the first 3 guys of the draft, and then Daniel Bellinger, nobody really heard of these guys. Nobody really heard of these guys. So, but I do like the draft class, and it's a very, very important one. 11 draft picks.
Yeah, I mean, here's my thoughts on it. I wouldn't say I'm not like a conspiracy theory guy, so I'm not going to be like one of those people who's like, Joe Shane told Chris Pettit about Charles Cross so he could leak it and then fire it. Like, I don't know, right? Who the hell knows? No one knows. I'm not going to make that up. But I do think, I don't even think this is a conspiracy theory, that Joe Shane was limited this year in his draft evaluations because he didn't trust what the scouts believed. And I think that's not even a conspiracy. That's just an apparent fact, or at least a very likely fact.
No, they fired multiple area scouts, national scouts. They fired the director of college scouting. So it's not a conspiracy. It was a conspiracy theory if you had that thought the second the draft ended, which that is, if you go back to our draft recap episode that Bobby and I had, we're like, we kind of think this. And then lo and behold, like he fired, he fired 2 guys. He fired somebody from the Judge regime that he hired. And then they obviously fired Chris Pettit when, and then he came in when Gettleman came in. So that is one. It's one of those things of, you look at this draft class, you feel good about it. You feel good about the young, the rawness of a lot of these guys, the versatility and how they can kind of develop. But also it is in the back of your brain that, man, it sucks that Joe Shane is coming into this terrible, terrible situation and can only rely on his evaluations. And one of our listeners was actually listening to the draft stream of the Cover One guys, Cover One Sports, and they're very much a Buffalo Bills centered show. And it's funny that whenever the Giants were picking, especially in the top 5 rounds, they would say, "Oh, that was a Bills top 30 visit. That was a Bills top 30 visit. Oh, the Bills met with this guy at the combine." So it's funny how, a lot of the guys that Joe Shane took and the Giants took, they were also on the Bills' radar. And we knew that when Joe Shane came in here, the second that he stepped foot, at the door to get the job, that he had rounds 1 through 4 done in terms of those evaluations. And it was just the back end of the draft that he needed to get to.
Yeah. I mean, they took James Cook, right? The Bills took James Cook. I mean, if that tells you anything, we know the Giants were interested in him.
Yes.
I think that's part of the reason why you saw, quote unquote reaches, is because Joe Shane felt like he knew those guys. He wanted them, despite the value, maybe even at certain points, he felt like those were his guys. That's kind of my standpoint on it. I think we're going to see a different type of draft next year once he has all his guys in place. That's for sure. I'm pretty confident in that.
And also, really, like I said, I want to see more like, I kind of want to see like, let's see a small school guy thrown in there every once in a while. O'Shane, Will Hernandez, those picks didn't work out from small schools, right? But just, it was so hyper-centered on like the bigger schools. Now, yes, there is San Diego State in there, and that's not the biggest school, but like nothing, like absolutely nothing. And like I said, tight end was an obvious position of need that the Giants had. So it doesn't surprise me that if you do consider San Diego State a small school, that's the position that we went that route in. But you talked about just taking possible reaches. And this is something that I knew about Joe Shane. We knew about Joe Shane coming in here. He talks more about the character of guys and the type of player that you're bringing into the building more than like talent. Like there are more quotes out there. And, when I was doing my prep for Joe Shane and when I kind of knew that he was going to be the GM, and I'm like, can you talk to me about what you think about players? And he's just talking about the character, the culture. And I do think, the word culture is definitely overthrown and it's overused by everybody, by fans, by coaches, by GMs, by teams, whatever. It's overused, but Joe Shane and the Bills, they showed that track record of, we are not going to make the conventional pick just because it should be the conventional pick, but we're going to bring in guys that are right for our building. Where I feel like Dave Gettleman talked about that, but then you bring in guys like DeAndre Baker who are caught sleeping in meetings, and then that bites you in the ass, right? So I think Joe Shane actually is like about that.
I want to talk about, well, first of all, I don't know if you mentioned Ellerson Smith too, because I feel like he came from a small school last year, our 4th round pick. Northern Iowa. So I mean,
Yes.
I would say that's a pretty small school as well.
That was with the previous regime, right? That was with the previous regime where they're trusting their scouts, where they have all of their guys that they're using at their discretion. And this is including Chris Pettit. This is including their area scouts. So that was the second year of Judge and the fourth year of Gettleman, where it's like, okay, we feel like we have our complement of scouts here, so we're going to be able to trust. Hey, if there's a third, fourth round pick that one of our scouts is really slamming the table for, we're going to trust him, right? And I think that's kind of like what that Ellerson Smith was, even though I think Ellerson Smith was also at the Senior Bowl, and Dave Gettleman, Joe Judge really love their Senior Bowl guys. And I think the Bills like their Senior Bowl guys too, but Judge and Gettleman really like their Senior Bowl guys.
Yeah, Ellerson Smith's someone who I'm excited to see for sure this season. He's like my underrated guy. I really want to see how he develops.
He could be like the number 3 edge rusher, which right now he is. He actually was at OTAs. He was getting starting reps next to Aziz when Kayvon has been wearing the red jersey. So I could see Ellerson being like the number 3 edge rusher, and that's even including in front of Quincy Roche, if he's fully healthy, if he's developed, if he's added more muscle mass. But also I could see him being cut. Like honestly, like right now, if before OTAs, I said that Ellerson Smith wouldn't really make, is one of those guys that possibly wouldn't make my main 53-man roster. I do think that he will make it, but I can easily see this regime being like, yeah, you didn't really do much in college. You were like 240 pounds when you had your best production. You took a year off, and then you barely played last year. And when you did play, you were used as like a filler for stunts. That's what he was used. So I can easily see this regime being like, no thanks, but he's an athletic guy that does have upside. So I am excited if he does make the team and he earns his keep. I'm excited to see what he can do.
And it could definitely be hung on to, I would think, as a practice squad guy if need be. I mean, I don't think teams are rushing after him. So no. I mean, something to think about. And then also talking about OTAs. We already mentioned his name. Daniel Bellinger has been involved a lot here early. We could talk about where he goes, because I do want to talk about him a little bit, where he goes in the depth chart when it comes to tight end. But speaking of guys, days 2 to 3, do you have a favorite pick that the Giants made on days 2 and 3?
Yeah, I feel like the conventional one is saying Daniel Bellinger, but we can talk about him more. But I love Micah McFadden. I really do. And I think he can have the impact day one of maybe not being this every down linebacker, but if he can get the timing of the NFL, the speed of the game, and if he can get the timing of Wink's defense, I think he can be like this maybe 3-4 sack, 8 to 10 QB hit kind of situational pass rusher for an interior, and for an interior linebacker that's really good. I'm not talking about an edge rusher. I'm talking about an interior linebacker. And if Wink Martindale wants to blitz this year, somebody is going to have to get the production. And if we want to have a defense that is top 10 in QB hits, maybe top half of the league in QB hits, because last year that department was just so bad. Graham would try to blitz and nobody would get home, and then he would have to drop everybody back in coverage. And if you're not getting home when you're blitzing, then nobody's going to get home at all. So we were just so bad in the QB hit department last year, got no pressure on the quarterback. So I would love if Micah McFadden, if Wink Martindale wants to come up with these elaborate blitz packages, if Micah McFadden can be that situational pass rusher that comes in from the interior, not on the edge, but from the interior, going on stunts, doing whatever, coming from up the middle, being patient, just being a bull in a china shop. So I would love to see that out of Micah McFadden this year. And I think that is the role that he can play from day one.
Player I'm really excited about is actually Cordell Flott. Funny enough, I know Bobby, when you guys reacted to the pick, he kind of got upset because he didn't really know who he was. I actually did know who he was. I didn't know who Wan'Dale Robinson was, but we can talk about that later.
That
didn't end so well.
Right, we switched. I knew who Wan'Dale was, but I didn't know who Cordell Flott was. But yeah.
Yeah. So
Did you see Alex's Wan'Dale Robinson reaction though?
No, I did not.
I just started screaming "who" over and over again.
Repeatedly.
I was very upset. But then
Bobby
cool down.
Bobby reacted that way to Cordell Flott, not because of Cordell Flott, but just because it was a stretch of picks that he didn't have full evals of. So at that point, it was Wan'Dale Robinson, who he didn't have a complete eval of, but he did have an eval of. It was Josh Azudu, and who he didn't have any idea who he was, and especially he's the big offensive line guy. And then was a Cordell Flott, so he was the third pick of day 2. So by that point, the third player that he was kind of iffy on, that he didn't have a full eval, so he lost it at that point. He lost his mind. So what did you think of Flott? What did you think of Flott kind of coming in?
I liked him a lot because when I saw his size, I was like, okay, this guy's a slot, right? He played slot mainly in college, etc. But I felt like his size, if he could bulk up like 10, maybe 15 pounds, he has potential to play on the outside. And that's kind of at the point that we knew James Bradbury was going to be cut. I was looking at Derek Stingley, actually, funny enough. I think that's how pretty much everyone saw Cordell Flott. Yeah. And you see him playing opposite of him, and you're like, oh, that guy can play. And I don't know. I didn't even have like a full eval on him like I did some players, but I liked him for sure. Wasn't really sure where he was going to go. I thought he was more of a 4th round guy. But I certainly liked him coming out. I really liked his flexibility in the slot and in the outside. So that was my thing about him. But Wan'Dale Robinson, I was just upset because, you do all this work for the draft and then you don't really know a guy in the second round. Like, it's devastatingly annoying. 3rd round, at least it's like, okay, whatever. But in the second round, it's so annoying. So that was part of my reaction to it. It wasn't as much the player. And then obviously the wide receiver, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's Kadarius Toney 2.0. Do we really need 2 of those guys? But then obviously, I don't know. It was a stressful day that day. Day 2 was definitely confusing, I think, for a lot of Giants fans. Though, we had the high of day 1, and then day 2 was just like, oh my God, what is happening?
Well, no, a lot of project players, and hey, it's competing for today, building for tomorrow, right? That's the phrase that I think Joe Schoen has actually tried to live by this offseason. There are some moves that I don't get. There's and this even includes like restructuring, not restructuring, but renegotiating of Blake Martinez, Sterling Shepard to stay for this year. Like, yeah, it makes sense, but there's still a void year, and there's more dead money next year than what it would have been if you just outright cut him this year. Cutting Logan Ryan is something that I will never understand, and I really think that's going to bite us in the ass. But building for today, competing for that's not it. Competing for today, building for tomorrow. Those day 2 picks, I think best kind of they best live by that kind of phrase, because Wan'Dale Robinson, I think he has a role. He has a role year 1, and I think that he's going to be in the slot kind of permanently, but creating yards after the catch. But he needs to get refinement as a route runner. I mean, that's just one thing. But he can have the yards after the catch element right away. And then Azudu, obviously you're a little bit raw, but very athletic upside. And I think a guy like Bobby Johnson, they're going to like that. And then Cordell Flott, one of the youngest players in the draft. And he needs to bulk up himself, and he needs to get a little bit more refined. I think, some people have talked about, hey, at like the top of the route maybe. Yeah, that's day 2 was a strange day, but they're making their investments, and they're making their they're taking their chances on those coaches developing those guys, which if these guys are here for the long haul, then I like.
So I mean, I said we can talk about Dan Bellinger a little bit later. Let's talk about him. So getting his name thrown around now with how much involvement he's been getting in OTAs for the Giants right now, and there's the whole thing OTAs like. How much do you talk about it? How much do you buy into players participating? Because it's everyone. It's all these 80, 90 guys. They're all going to get a chance to do something. So, like, how much do you... Oh, Dan Bellinger caught a 30-yard touchdown, whatever. Like, he's been on for 5 consecutive plays. Like, how much do you feed into that? Well, so looking at the tight end position, I mean, the Giants made a couple signings this offseason. They brought in the guy from the Texans, Akins, and they signed Jones. They brought back Chris Myrick, who's, won't do anything no matter what. But could Bellinger be TE1? Like, is it possible that he could be the starting tight end for the New York Giants come when the season starts?
I think he will be. And I think he is right now. Usually it takes coaches a long time, like an unfathomably and dumb long time sometimes to get guys who are clearly better, just because they're young, that's why they don't play them and that's why they don't start them right away. I mean, think back to 2019. We were trotting out Antoine Bethea every single week, but then Julian Love comes in here at safety and boom, he immediately looks better, which is crazy. So coaches take a very, very long time. Even think of Kadarius Toney last year. Now, yeah, he may be behind in some elements, but how difficult it is just to call a screen, how difficult it is just to call a slant and get him the ball if there's cushion, wherever he's running at, whether it's out of the slot or whether it's on the outside. And then finally, when they had no choice but to play him because of other injuries and other guys going down, he balled out, right? So coaches, they have the tendency to take a long time to play guys, and I like how Daniel Bellinger during OTAs is tight end 1, and it's not because of injuries. It's because that I think he is the best tight end in the tight end room right now. Ricky Seals-Jones is healthy. He's all right. Can't block. Jordan Akins, he's healthy. He's a veteran. He's all right, but also can't block. And Daniel Bellinger could be the most complete tight end on the roster right now by being able to block, by also being a pass-catching threat as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've now after these last year at least, I don't really care what happens. Daniel Jones could throw 10 million yards and 50,000 touchdowns in training camp, and I wouldn't care. I just want to see what happens on the field.
Well, no, here's where I'm going to stop you. Here's where I'm going to stop you, because Daniel Jones has struggled through camp in 2020 and 2021. From everything that we heard in 2020, and then definitely in 2021, I know for a fact, we would have the beat reporters on, and somebody actually who a listener of Talkin Giants who we met recently, he told me about the podcast that we had Zach Rosenblatt on when Snacks and I were up in Massachusetts for the Patriots joint practices. And Zach Rosenblatt was just like, I don't mean to be morbid about this offense, but they're just not good. And he got a lot of hate. Zach Rosenblatt got a lot of hate for it's not even week 1 yet, and you're saying that this Giants offense is doomed because they look bad in training camp. It doesn't matter. Jason Garrett is hiding all the plays. They don't want to show anything. They don't want to show their hand.
I love that. Yeah,
I hate those expressions because training camp is very, very important, and OTAs and all this, it's all very, very important. And if the offense looks bad, it's probably going to be bad. They're not just going to snap their fingers and just turn into the greatest show on turf. I feel like that's what a lot of people and that's what a lot of fans were just hoping would happen, and it just has not. So that I do think training camp matters. Now, the preseason games, I think that is what kind of does not matter. It matters to an extent, but training camp and when you're out there every single day and when people are taking notes on, how an offense is moving, that's the stuff that I do think matters. So whoever's getting reps, especially if everybody's healthy in a room, all of that stuff is extremely, extremely important, especially when you're talking about a new coaching staff, so many new players, et cetera, et cetera.
I would also say it's not as much about the people who are doing bad, right? If someone's doing bad in training camp, then they're most likely going to be bad during the season. Yeah. It's more about these players that are getting really hyped up during training camp and during OTAs, and then sometimes they, aren't as hyped up during the season. They don't perform to that level. That's kind of more where my what's the word? I can't think of the word. Thought process. There you go. Thank you. That's where my thought process is at. It's not more about this guy's not looking good. Daniel Jones isn't looking good. He's going to be awful or whatever, right? It's more about Daniel Jones is playing great. Do I really believe that? In training camp, I want to see it on the field. It's more of that process, I think, for me. Yeah,
we all fell victim to the Lorenzo Carter hype train of 2019, 2020, 2021. He just looks.
And then
great.
He gave it to us at the end. Remember last season, right? He was turning it on. I made the joke upsetting.
I made the joke, and when I would clip games and stuff like that. Best player in the NFL, Lorenzo Carter, throughout the last 5 weeks of the season. He was really, and it's a shame that one of his best reps of his NFL career came against the Chargers, where Justin Herbert completed that insane, monster, explosive play throw. Lorenzo Carter dipped and it was against Rashawn Slater too. He dipped the edge, showed the flexibility and dip that he really hasn't showed a lot in his NFL career. Over Rashawn Slater, all-pro, rookie of the year, whatever you want to call him, Rashawn Slater. And he puts a licking on Justin Herbert, but it's still like a 60-yard play. So, of course.
Last 2 minutes, of course, too, with our 90, whatever,
yes, that was the play.
Whatever it was. Yep.
That was the play that kept the streak alive. Let's go.
What is it, 81-0, 88-0? It doesn't really matter when you get
that high,
it
blew my mind more that the Giants just couldn't even get a field goal.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Are we going to buy in, guys, to the – well, I mean, we're talking about it. Daniel Jones to Wan'Dale Robinson. Insane catch. The ball was underthrown.
That concerns me about Aaron Robinson, by the way. That was my concern when I watched it.
Right. I remember we talked about that. You said that.
Well, here's what I have about that. That was a play that Wan'Dale Robinson really ran well at Kentucky, is those slot fades. Now think back to 2019 and 2020. The Golden Tate and Daniel Jones connection was like oddly good. Golden Tate was not good, but the Golden Tate and Daniel Jones connection, especially in 2019, was very, very good. And do you remember that play, 2019 Thursday Night Football?
Yep,
where
remember it.
Golden Tate ran a slot fade, and it was a perfectly placed ball by Daniel Jones. Golden Tate just breaks one tackle, and he just basically walks backwards into the end zone, and that's an explosive play touchdown. I am predicting that is a play that Daniel Jones is telling Brian Daboll, hey, look at this film from 2019. Look at how this worked. Look at how this worked for us a couple times, the slot fade. Wan'Dale Robinson did that more than a few times at Kentucky, and he was successful with it. Let's do that again, Brian Daboll. Let's do that again. And Brian Daboll has been known to listen to his players, and he's gone on record saying that I'm going to ask Daniel Jones and I'm going to ask what these guys like to run, and then we're going to see if we can implement it. So that play and that kind of combo, Daniel Jones to Wan'Dale Robinson slot fades, is something I think we're going to see quite often this year.
I will forever defend Golden Tate. The contract wasn't good, I'll admit it, but I thought he was a solid player for the Giants, okay? Josh screamed at me for, I don't know, a year. I don't care. I'm gonna stick with it. I will take it to the grave that Golden Tate was not bad. That was it. Anyway.
Oh, boy.
So many arguments about that. Funny enough. Probably the most contested.
How much was that contract?
I don't even remember at this point. 31 million.
Age of a player.
But he was good.
Are you paying
he
that much
good.
money?
He was okay.
It was okay.
I get it, man. But
and
he
also,
was a security blanket.
The thing that really got me about Golden Tate is that they traded away Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
And then the next day they signed Golden Tate. It's like, well, what are we doing? Are we like rebuilding? Like what are we doing? And the whole thing that like Bobby and I would also go back and forth about this too. It's like, well, you have to sign somebody. Well, it's like, don't sign Golden Tate. Especially when you had Shepard. Especially when you had Shepard, who was a good slot receiver, and then you get Golden Tate and you bump Shep to the outside, even though Shep did fine, but still, bad process.
Agreed.
Bad process. But I think Golden Tate was decent for what he came in to do.
I don't want to talk about it.
Don't want to talk about it? Okay,
I
sorry.
don't want to talk about it. Wan'Dale Robinson.
I think he'll be better. Right. I think Wan'Dale Robinson will be better than Golden Tate.
I hope Wan'Dale Robinson will be better than Golden Tate. But I think that play, that specific play, and especially when we're talking about an offense and a quarterback that desperately needs to get more explosive, and I think Daniel Jones wants to be explosive. I just think it was an offense and it was a scheme that told him not to. I mean, what the first thing that Jason Garrett came in and said about Daniel Jones is, we want to hone down the turnovers, we want to hone down the interceptions. Okay, great, but that shouldn't come at the cost of not scoring points. Okay, great, yeah, like Daniel Jones's fumble rate and his interception rate was down compared to his rookie year, but don't let that come at the cost of not scoring points. And that's exactly what happened the last 2 years.
It's crazy that they brought in Kenny Gallagher for $72 million, right? He's the definition of an explosive play wide receiver. And then they run no explosive plays with him or with anyone.
He's a contested catch guy. And
contested catch, open.
Jake Fromm, the home game against Dallas was the first time that he actually got like a legitimate opportunity to have a contested catch, and he got it.
Crazy.
So, yeah, it was wild. Daniel Jones is also – this is something that Daniel Jones also needs to get in his head too. Daniel Jones is this type of quarterback that doesn't really understand the premise of throwing it up and then just allowing your wide receiver to really make a play on a football. Like I think everything with him, and why training camp is so important too, because Gallagher was just in shorts the entire summer last year, and they lost that time that they can throw with each other. Daniel Jones I don't think Daniel Jones fully got how to throw to Kenny Gallagher, because you can literally throw it anywhere to Kenny Gallagher, and he can stretch. He has the radius. He has the size. He has that athleticism to kind of go up and get the ball. And Daniel Jones has never had a wide receiver like that, where he's always just had to place a perfectly placed ball, whether it is in front of you, like a back shoulder that's intentional. All of those things had to be intentionally placed. Whereas Kenny Gallagher, you don't really need to intentionally place the ball anywhere. Just kind of allow him to go up and make a play.
Here's a good Giants wide receiver topic that Alex will get all hyped up about. Darius Slayton. The two of us have talked about the guy a lot recently. Justin, keep or cut Darius Slayton right now if you had to make a decision?
I keep him.
Yeah, what the hell kind of question is that? I don't understand. Some people are delusional. I don't understand. Oh my god, this thing that pisses me off the most on Twitter.
It's not a bad question, but
don't out your co-host like that.
No, it's not a bad question, because it's a question that, Bobby, we did our 53-man prediction pod, and that was a question that we did ask. That was the first question that we asked about the wide receiver room. And I do think you need to keep him, because you just don't know what the health of the front four guys are going to be. Like, all of them have question marks. All of them, besides Wan'Dale Robinson. But, the top three guys, Wan'Dale Robinson has a question mark because he's a rookie. So then, obviously Shep has the health problems. Gallagher has the health problems. And then Kadarius Toney, I think, is also kind of a shoe-in to miss some games. So I think that's why you kind of have to keep Darius Slayton around.
It's the Slayton hate that gets me. I get it. He had a couple bad drops last year. But then people act like he was the only bad player on the Giants. Like, it's not like our whole team was just shit. Like, our whole team was shit. Like, I don't understand people who are like, oh my God, can you believe what Darius, like, could you believe what the whole Giants team was doing? That's really how I looked at it. And
Darius Slayton's a fifth-round pick, too. Yeah,
he's a fifth-round pick. And his first two seasons, he was phenomenal for what he was in a fifth-round pick, right? He was a great wide receiver. Had the connection with Daniel Jones. He had the big playability. In his second year, there was, I remember that Green Bay catch. Like, he had a lot of good touchdown catches. And he was a big guy for us. It felt like in certain times he was wide receiver one. He was kind of. And I think now he's wide receiver, 4 or 5? He brings value.
Ideally. Yeah, and especially at wide receiver 4 or 5, he brings that.
Yeah. And then what are you going to do? Bring some, everyone loves Sills Army. I get it, but you're not going to bring David Sills or C.J. Board or even what's the guy, Richie James? Like, come on, like
Colin Johnson, big contributor last season.
Oh my God!
All three of our when all three of our starting wide receivers were out last year. Remember when Colin Johnson was our wide receiver?
Hey, Colin Johnson against Atlanta got me kind of excited.
It was exciting
a little bit for you.
Oh yeah, he was like, oh, this is a guy.
Yeah. It's just I hate when people overreact to things. It annoys me. Like, I think I get it. We all love this team, so we want everything to be the best all the time. But sometimes you just need to be patient. Like, Darius Slayton's a human being. He's not a robot. Like, people make mistakes. And it's not like he has made mistakes throughout his entire career. He's not been a klutz throughout his entire career. He had one bad season. I think you just got to, part of the reason he's getting all these drops, his confidence is low. And it's probably because people are shitting on him on Twitter.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things, too. It's like, okay, if you don't want Darius Slayton, then do you really want, 2 special teamers at wide receiver? Do you want one less wide receiver on the roster? Like, do you only want 5 of them, and then C.J. Board is that last wide receiver, and then let's just say you lose 1 or 2 of your wide receivers due to injury, and then you have the starting crew of C.J. Board, Kenny Gallagher, and Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, those are your 3 wide receivers. So I think I actually do think the Giants are going to carry 6 wide receivers. So, Mike, my kind of projection now is Darius Slayton as that 5th wide receiver, and then C.J. Board as the 6th guy, because I think he can be both very sufficient on special teams, and then also he's decent as a pass catcher too. So, and that's something that I like just about the roster in general, is that you look up and down, and it's just like, oh, this guy isn't just a special teamer. He can also like play the game of football too, which is nice.
Yeah, a lot of Keon Crossan and what was the guy? Nate Ebner.
Nate Ebner. I mean, we had two fullbacks on the roster. It was
Gillespie.
Elijah Penny and Colin Gillespie.
Gillespie, yeah.
Yeah. So there's no more of those guys.
Yeah, so that's good, I guess.
Dable wants a fullback, though. Dable wants a fullback.
I kind of felt like we should have kept Eli Penny. I don't know. I thought he was
a lot of people a lot of people would agree with you. Like a lot of I think Bobby might even agree with you too. But because fullbacks are valuable, and especially one like Elijah Penny who has improved as a fullback. He has improved as a blocker. Throughout the years I've kind of gone on. 2018, 2019. Like his rookie years, first 2 years, he wasn't that good, but then he kind of took some big strides in 2020.
Has he been signed?
I don't know, but the Giants do have Jeremiah Hall. And
yes.
Jeremiah Hall, UDFA from Oklahoma, he's the only fullback that is listed on the Giants roster right now, but you can even call him like a tight end. Like you can call him, you can kind of call him a whatever. So he may like fill that H-back role. I actually think that he is going to make the team. I think he is going to he could be like that fourth tight end on the roster, but also be like this H-back that lines up in the backfield and just is like that a lead blocker. And he can also catch the ball too. So he could be a little bit of a weapon.
Yeah. I think we had him in our 53-man roster as well. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do. Someone we can see what happens in training camp. Speaking of training camp, amazing transition there. What battles are you most excited for? Let's give 2 battles, 2 positions that you're excited to see the battles for. You go, and then I'll say something because I can't help myself.
Left guard.
Indeed.
Yeah, I think left guard. I don't even think that should be a battle. I kind of no, I take that back. I want Shane Lemieux to win because I do think the best version of the Giants' offensive line this year is if Shane Lemieux is playing up to a starting standard. I do eventually want Josh Azudu, like year 2. I think that should be his job. I think he should kind of take this year for those mental reps, get coached up by Bobby Johnson. I don't really love that they're cross-training Azudu right now because Azudu is a very raw player. He's not a very technically sound player, especially with his hands. So let's get him up to speed on left guard before we start putting him as second-team left tackle. But neither here nor there. Left guard, I'm really looking forward to, and that's also you have Max Garcia thrown in there as well. So Max Garcia, Shane Lemieux, Josh Azudu, battle for left guard. That's number 1.
I'm going to go with CB2. I'm excited to see what happens there because I'm just fascinated. Is it going to be Aaron Robinson? Is it going to be one of the guys we brought in from Baltimore? Is it going to be Cordell Flott, which is kind of what I'm secretly hoping it is, but I'm not sure if he can gain all that muscle in time. But maybe like midway through the season we see him there. But yeah, that's what I'm excited. Just kind of because of the mystery. You don't really know even what are the options. We don't really know.
Yeah. Yeah, interior linebacker 2 is another one, even though you think that Tay Crowder should have that. But Tay Crowder is not great. Like, he's not great. And again, we're talking about another guy who, for the draft position that he was slotted in, right, that he was taken, extremely successful player. Like Tay Crowder, we did on Bleeding Blue, we did a best Giants draft picks by each round in franchise history. Tay Crowder is already up there in 7th-round picks for the best in franchise history, even though he's only played for, 2 years? he's already up there because the draft is such a crapshoot, especially when you get to the 7th round. But I don't think interior linebacker 2 is solely locked up, and frankly, I think that there should be like a rotation of guys. It should be Beavers on some run-heavy downs. Crowder can be like that, just the veteran mix that's out there, probably getting the majority of the snaps. Micah McFadden could be out there on the passing downs to be out there as a blitzer too. So interior linebacker 2, edge 3. We talked about Quincy Roche and Ellerson Smith before, but edge rusher number 3, who's going to be that first guy off the bench? You have Jihad Ward in there too. Who's going to be that first guy that comes off the bench to either have maybe like a 3-4 linebacker set, and I'm talking about all edge rushers on the field at one time because they're all standing up, or some of them are putting their hands in the dirt on the inside. I think you're going to see a lot of that from Wink Martindale this year. And that's why I actually think the Giants are only going to carry 4 interior defensive linemen. I don't think they're going to carry 5. I think it's going to be Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, and then 2 guys who are also on the team. I know Justin Ellis is 1, and then like DJ Davidson maybe the 4th. But I don't envision them carrying 5 because I think the Giants are going to utilize a lot more of their edge rushers this year in terms of having them out there on the field, being a part of whatever Wink Martindale wants to show and kind of mixing up different looks.
And, I'll just throw out, I know we've been talking about it, not really a training camp competition, but just over the season, like, how are our wide receivers going to shape out? Because last year was kind of like a shit show, and we have a couple injury-prone guys on there. So just what's going to happen behind the wide receiver number 1? How is wide receiver number 2 and number 3 going to shape out?
Dude, I have no clue because ideally we're finishing the year saying Kadarius Toney is wide receiver 1. Kadarius Toney should end the year with the most catches and the most yards on the team. Like that is how this should go. And Kenny Golladay is probably not going to be a Giant next year. I mean, he's just not. You can say the same thing about like a guy like Leonard Williams. These guys that just have massive contracts. So like you talk about what is it going to look like behind wide receiver 1. Are you envisioning Kenny Golladay as wide receiver 1?
Yeah, and then whoever behind him, I don't know how you want to do it. Probably 2 is Toney, 3 is Shepard, 4 is Slayton, I guess.
Yeah, and that's we don't know. And the personnel grouping frequency in terms of how often these guys are going to be on the field at the same time is something that I'm very excited about because the Giants went from in 2020 and 2021 running like the most 13 personnel in the National Football League, which is 3 tight ends on the field at one time. Now we're going to go to the team that runs the most like 10 personnel with 4 wide receivers on the field at one time. And Dable did run a lot of that in Buffalo. Like his 10 personnel frequency was like 2nd or 3rd highest in the NFL from last year. So that's what I'm really excited for. And Toney should take wide receiver 1. Like we should end the year saying Kadarius Toney is the future wide receiver 1 of the New York Giants as the security blanket underneath for Daniel Jones in the slot and in the outside, while also getting the yards after the catch. And he proved that last year with the yards after the catch. His advanced yards after the catch metrics were top 10 in the National Football League. And yes, he did log enough targets and he did log enough catches to actually be counted in those advanced metrics, which was cool to see. So in a scheme that actually does maximize and utilize yards after the catch, Toney should be that guy. But I could very much see him playing like 7-8 games this year, him missing 9, and us saying, man, we have a Kadarius Toney problem, that he's just not available for us enough. I can also very much see that happening, and I kind of think that is more likely than him really just busting out and just being awesome, which sucks. But I'm rooting for him, and I think he can be that guy. But I just think that is more likely next offseason where we're having this Kadarius Toney problem trade, what are we going to do with him thing, rather than like, oh, Kadarius Toney, good, solid, he's here, not a problem.
And Wan'Dale Robinson and Kadarius Toney on the field at the same time. That's going to be interesting as well.
I think Kadarius Toney can be an outside guy, though. Because you had the same thing with Tate and Shepard, where Tate came in, he took over the slot. Shepard was primarily a slot wide receiver at that point in his career, and he went to the outside, and he was just fine. And frankly, Sterling Shepard had more slot wide receiver numbers from the outside than he did ever in the slot. It was very strange because Shepard with Daniel Jones became like this possession wide receiver, high catch rate, high first down rate on 3rd down, and low average depth of target. And that's typically what like your slot possession wide receiver does. But Shep was doing all of that in 2019 and 2020 from the outside. Like in 2020, they had like an 80% catch rate when Jones and Shep were on the field together. And when Jones was throwing to Shep, it was like an 80% catch rate. It was so freaking crazy. Like that is like an insanely high catch rate. I mean, it's not like we're just talking about Sterling Shepard just getting screens. Like that never happened. You know, he was getting, not throwing to him deep, but it was they had a really, really good connection. And that is when Shep was on the outside. So I do think there can be a world where Toney and Wan'Dale Robinson can very much coexist together while doing similar things in a way.
Talkin Giants, bleeding blue, talking football. at Justin Penik on Twitter, John Boy Media. What else do we got for the people, Justin?
That's it. That's it, man. I'm trying to just get ready for the season, man. That's we were talking before we kind of came on. I'm trying to do some BTS behind the scenes things to upgrade some tech stuff, and I want to have a good summer with some fun content that I have planned on my own. I want to try and start streaming. I want to try and start streaming NFL Head Coach 09. So I want to try and really get that going. I want to really want to attack the Talkin' Football stuff. So YouTube, there you go. That's an ask. Talkin' Football on YouTube. Not sure if it's going to be, probably not going to be a podcast this year, but it's going to be a dope YouTube channel. So go subscribe over there. We're going to have a lot of fun over there. And obviously Talkin' Giants versus the world too. So I appreciate and I love you guys.
By the way, Andrew
Justin,
Thomas never tweeted it out, so that's pretty upsetting.
Well, hey, it may take a little while. He said that
maybe it's delayed.
The shirts, we got to get I'm actually wearing a Hog Molly shirt today.
Okay.
I'm wearing the Hog Molly shirt because we just put out a shirt called Dirtbags. Because that is what the Giants offensive line is calling themselves this year. They're calling themselves the Dirtbags. Okay. So I'm retiring the Hog Molly shirt by telling you to go get a Dirtbag shirt if you want to.
There you go.
If you want to identify. Yeah, too many plugs. Who am I? Media scum.
Good. Go ahead.
Yeah. No.
Go off, King. I love
Justin.
Media some clowns.
That's right.
Justin, we thank you so much for taking the time with us. Really appreciate it. Again, Talkin' Giants, Giant Take. Subscribe to both of those, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. And then you could drop a follow on the Twitters, the Instagrams, the Facebook. Again, Talkin' Giants, the Giant Take. Thank you for listening or watching. We'll see you next time. Peace.